Hey, friends. I'm here with Aaron Kuhn. I'm very excited about this. He's a podcaster, researcher, author, and musician. Since early 2019, he's been the co host of Journey to Truth podcast with Tyler Koala. He was a devout Christian until the age of 25 when he had his awakening. Then he came across people such as David Icke, David Wilcock, Jordan Maxwell, Dolores Cannon, Project Camelot, and so many others. And he started putting the pieces together about ETs, what's really going on our planet, our true history, and the true nature of our reality. And after doing 5 years of research in isolation, he attended his first conference in 2017 called the Eclipse of Disclosure in Mount Shasta, California. That next year, the sequel happened to that conference called The Dimensions of Disclosure, whereas he met Tyler Koala. And shortly thereafter, they started the Journey to Truth podcast, and they've been going strong ever since. Aaron and Tyler are now putting on conferences, doing webinars, and creating documentaries. And I believe that you also have a Patreon and some other accounts. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Well, welcome and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I'm very excited about this.
Me too. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. And you've done so many things in your short life. You should be like 80 years old, but I don't think you are.
I feel like it. Yeah.
I know sometimes, right?
Sometimes. Yeah. Definitely not.
Absolutely. I should have asked you to, bring some of your music on, but I didn't even think about it till right now.
Oh yeah. Want to go get my guitar right now? Just
You know what? We might end with that. We might end with
Okay.
that. Awesome. So I want to take this opportunity because so many people have questions. You have been doing a lot of research into every element of humanity and beyond for a long time. You come with a very discerning eye. You look for what rings true for you, what may not be so true, etc. And what happened to cause this awakening you had?
Well, that it's hard to pinpoint exactly what in particular caused it. I think it was just a matter of so I grew up very Christian my whole life. The rest of my family still is. And I got very involved with like the youth group and like all that. And I was like that kid, I was like the super Christian kid, except I wasn't super outspoken about it. Like you could have met me and not known that, but I was, I had very strong beliefs and I hit a point in my mid 20s where it just kind of like I started getting tired of just believing all these things that I finally realized like, wait a second, how do I even know all this stuff's true? Are these really my own beliefs or were they just all handed to me? And I realized I'd never really dug into my own religion and the Bible and all that stuff truly. I kind of like told myself I did, but I really hadn't, truly. So I would say it was just those ideas just started coming to me. And then the other big one was the whole concept of hell, which really didn't resonate with me my whole life until that point. But it was one of those things I was just like, well, that's the truth. So that's it. I'm supposed to believe that. Right. But it finally got to the point where I'm like, wait a second, is that even true? Is that even like, where does that come from? We're told it's in the Bible. So let me start there. Let me research it there. And then, because that's kind of like, to me, that one concept, if you can debunk that on your own, it unravels the whole dogma narrative of Christianity or any religion, where you can debunk the fear aspect of it, of where that comes from. And what I found when I researched that is that, for one, it's not even in the Bible. So, if you read the Bible, you open it up, you're reading the English translation, which is not the original translation. Of course, it was originally written in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. And then then it went through multiple translations and edits, and they decided, they all met together and decided what books we're going to include and what we aren't. And so when I actually started doing research on the Bible for the first time in my life, not just the English translation, but the original text and what those original words
Wow.
meant, I realized everything that gets translated as the word hell does not mean our modern day concept of hell or what we're taught. There's like 4 different words that all get translated as hell. One of them means the grave, one of them means death, one of them is Gehenna, which was actual physical location, like a kind of like a garbage dump location. And so it looks like it's in there, but it's not. It's a mistranslation, and then there's a interpretation of that translation that we're sold, that we're taught, and then we're told, oh, that's why Jesus died, to save you from this horrible place that you're condemned to just for being born, which makes no sense in of itself. But
fascinating.
That's another topic. So I was like, wait a second. So this thing I've been taught my whole life. So for one, I'm taught, you as a Christian, you're taught the Bible is like the God's word. It's the book of truth, and that's the only book of truth, basically. And you're basically told to just accept it. If you have to have faith and just accept it to be a Christian. And they're like, oh yeah, questioning's great and doubting's great, but it's really not, because when you truly start
don't question too deeply
level, they don't like that. They try to say, but you're taught
you'll burn in hell for questioning too deeply. Oh,
right. Or it's like, oh no, they'll basically tell you your interpretations are wrong. Here's the correct interpretation, or here's the correct narrative. But when you do your own research, I firmly believe that if every human being did their own research on the Bible without preconceived biases, without filters, just reading the original text, reading what it actually said, and within the context also of the culture at the time, because that's important as well. And then a big one is reading the books that did not get included in the official Bible, like the Book of Enoch, Thomas, all the Nag Hammadi texts, all the other stuff. You really see why those didn't get included, because they contain a lot of very empowering information to the individual, which is kind of like, the opposite of what a control system wants.
Right.
For individuals to be empowered. They want to have all the power, not you. So can't have that.
Yeah. Question though, one of them that I believe was taken out was the concept of reincarnation.
Reincarnation.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was taken out because so the Roman Catholic Church, Rome, the Empire of Rome, is where our modern day Christianity it comes from. They took, there was all the paganism going on, and then there was the Christian movement that happened from Jesus, or Yeshua was his real name, and the early Christians and the Essenes and all that. Basically that was getting out of control. So they're like, all right, we have to figure out how we're going to deal with this. And the only way they could do that was to combine it with the paganism and the stuff already at the time, which is why we have Christmas on winter solstice and Easter on spring equinox. These were pagan holidays, and all these other things as well. But really it goes back to ancient Egypt and before that. But yeah, so they basically were like, all right, we're gonna take all these writings and figure out which ones we're gonna create the official Bible, and then leave whatever we don't want. Well, of course, reincarnation, they have to create a fear-based belief system and control system. So if people know that this one life is not all there is, that they've had many lives in the past and they're going to keep having many lives in the future, then death is nothing to fear, and you're going to just keep. And then you're not just living for this one life, you're living you realize you're an eternal being, and you're going to keep living lives. Well, then you're it just gives you a much bigger perspective, and it kind of like, it's hard to live in fear when you realize death is not the end and there's nothing to be afraid of, right? So they can't have that. They can't have people understanding that. So gotta get rid of that. And on top of that, you gotta make them fear death, think this one life is all there is, and if you don't get it right in this one life, you could end up in this horrible place for all eternity. And what does that do? Oh my gosh, everyone's in fear, everyone's terrified of death and terrified to go against or to not believe the things that are going to save them in this one lifetime. So here's, believe this and you'll be saved, and then pay the church lots of money and all this kind of stuff, confess all your sins to this guy in a booth and constantly like,
right.
Then then it's like the early version of like the NSA,
Yeah.
Everyone's telling them all their secrets and everything about them, and they're just writing it all down,
You're reminding me of when I was a child. My parents weren't particularly religious. And we had this babysitter come over who was like super religious. And the bedtime story is about like, being a good person, you're going to burn in hell for eternity. I was terrified.
Yeah. What is that doing?
6 years old.
Right. That's and me too. I was taught that as a kid. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember being so terrified of somehow accidentally ending up in hell. So I was like constantly quite like, wait, am I really saved? Like,
Yeah.
And there's like this underlying fear that's like always there,
Well, and it eats at you and it becomes an energy drain, right? At the soul. Yeah. It's just like this leak Absolutely. That never ends. And it's unfortunate. Absolutely. And hopefully, as people are listening to this, I think fear is a really great conversation to have because, fear in small doses can keep us safe. But these monumental fears, they're enslavement. It enslaves humanity.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is because this is the next thing I kind of realized was I'm like, then the next logical thing, I was like, well, what did Jesus come for if he didn't come to save us? What we're taught. Oh, he came to save you from your sins and from hell and all this stuff. And then I just read what the Bible and the original text. And I'm like, wait a second. Jesus never
Oops, I think we've cut out a little bit. Let's just wait a second.
Was off track.
You know what, Aaron? You just cut out. You cut out for a moment there. Could you repeat that, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I was like, well, what did Jesus really come for? And when I just read it with these new set of eyes, I'm like, okay, so he was clearly some kind of higher dimensional being that incarnated to help humanity, but not to save them from this place called hell if they don't believe the right thing in a finite amount of time. Like, doesn't make any sense. He came to, humanity was going down a very dark path because of the manipulation and the suppression, and the dark controllers basically helping to steer humanity down their negative timeline, which they're still trying to do. But at that time, it was kind of like, okay, we need a lot of help, So he was a higher dimensional being that chose to incarnate to help out humanity, to show us, hey, show us the light, show us love and how to really live and to get us back on track, basically. And he taught, though, that we are the same as him. He said, don't you know you are gods? Don't you know you can do these things that I do and greater? He was trying to say, hey, you're the same as me. You're no different. I just happen to be awake,
right,
to a certain level, and you guys are very asleep. So he's trying to wake us up. He was trying to wake up humanity, and he did a lot of it, but then of course what happens is they killed him because he was a threat to the control system. They didn't kill him for any other reason than that. They're like, he's a big threat. He's waking people up. He's spreading love and light and truth. We gotta take this guy out, So then they kill him. Then they distort his message and create into the control system and create a religion out of it, which to me, a religion is a control system. I'm sorry. There's a lot of truth in all of them, but there's a lot of lies that were on purpose put in there, and they kind of mold it into a control system to keep people keep people small, keep people giving their power away to external saviors and authorities outside of them, keep people in fear. Jesus taught the exact opposite of all those things. So if you actually, a lot of Christians say, "Oh, I'm a Christ follower. Like I'm not religious. I just follow Christ. I just have a relationship with Christ." Well, if you actually followed Christ and you actually had a relationship with him, which you can, by the way, right now, you can connect with Yeshua right now. You should know that he is trying to wake you up to your own power, not give your power away to him or some external God. God is within you. We are all a part of the same infinite energy, which you could call God, but it's not a being up in the sky somewhere,
Right. And
it's trying to wake us up to that.
You bring up a good point about following him. What about
I woke
following
up,
him?
I realized all that.
Being with him, right? Being a part of him, right? Instead of following him. And that's, we're taught to follow him. Great points. Who do you think are the controllers on this planet? This is a loaded question. This could go on for hours. I know that.
That's a very loaded question. Yeah.
But if you could name one or two controllers or ideologies of control.
Right. Well, that question, it's not like it's just one group.
I know.
It's a whole system. It's a whole pyramidal hierarchical structure, and it's a system. So there are many players within that system. There's the Rothschilds that we hear about. And yeah, they're pretty high up, but they're not the top of the pyramid, And when you get high enough, you go beyond humans.
Right.
And then you start getting into non-human entities or beings. What you could call extraterrestrials or aliens, all different terms meaning the same thing. Or demons and angels. To me, those are just different terms.
They're just extraterrestrials. Yeah.
Right. And many are higher dimensional. So even the negative ones are in supposedly 4D, lower 4D or whatever. So they're still higher dimensional than 3D, and that's how they have this kind of power dynamic over humanity that's completely locked into 3D and doesn't understand there's more than just the five senses. But yeah, it goes into ETs, and then I would even say it goes into just entities that are not physical at all, that are dark basically, and that are that have basically disconnected themselves from source, is a way to put it, that so they no longer are being fed through source energy. They have to parasite off of other beings that are connected to the source. So hence what we see all the time and what you deal with all the time is these kind of parasitic
removing the parasites from humanity. Do you think, and this is the question I'm always asking myself, I feel like I'm kind of emptying out the Atlantic Ocean with a bucket. Do you think that we'll be able to get there to that point where these nefarious entities who left the light of God's source, who need our energy and attach to us, do you think we can get to the point where humanity in general can be released of that? Or do you think there's just going to be a separation of humanity, so to speak?
I do, because I truly believe, we hear about the ascension and the new earth and all that. And it's easy to just write that off as new age nonsense or whatever, but I don't agree with. There is a lot of new age nonsense. Don't get me wrong. There is a lot. But don't get me wrong. My
ways. No, I'm kidding.
But don't throw the baby out of the bathwater, because there is a lot of truth, and that's where that comes from. And there is an ascension happening. The frequency of the planet is raising, and we're this is even mainstream science and space data even shows that we are moving in, our solar system's moving into a highly energetic part of space that is all this energy is coming in, and you got the Schumann resonance and all these other things that are pointing to that as well. And yeah, so basically the planet Gaia, whatever, if Gaia is the name of the planet, that's what people say, whatever, the planet is a being. And the planet is ascending. The planet is moving up in frequency, and we're just residing on the planet. So the planet's going with or without us. So basically, humanity is going to have to keep, the ones that are on that path are going to keep raising their frequency along with the planet. And the ones that aren't are going to have to go somewhere else. It's really as simple as that. And whether that happens within our lifetime to some degree, where we see some kind of, some big changes on that level or not, it's happening. And I truly believe that. So I think at some point, these dark entities and these dark beings and these very low frequency beings are not going to be able to stay on the planet just because they're not frequency specific. They're just physically not going to be able to be here. I think it's already to some degree happening where they're having a hard time, I think, already. And they're kind of desperate right now. I think they're kind of like lashing out a lot and trying to.
Seeing them join forces out of desperation, which I hadn't really seen or noticed like I am now, that these different entities are coming together, but like, oh crap. So we know they're desperate, and they're going to be ramping up things, and they're going to be trying to make us as uncomfortable as possible, creating divisions as much as possible.
Right.
And with these divisions, do you think that's where it's like the shakeout happens, is with these divisions within people, within humanity? Because everywhere we go, we see divisions.
Yeah. And I think there's two aspects of that. I think the negative aspect of division is when, and instead of realizing we're all one and realizing like we need to come together and love, people are forming these little groups of like, oh, my group's right, yours is wrong, and I'm right, you're wrong, and fighting over these things that ultimately are stupid and don't matter. It's like when we realize like we all want the same thing, we're all the same ultimately, and we're all one ultimately. But then there's the natural, I think, division of frequency happening, where people that are stuck at a lower frequency, stuck in a lot of fear, a lot of unhealed trauma, and all that kind of thing, are naturally kind of being divided from the high people that are more healed, are on a higher frequency, just because of the path, where they're at in the path. Again, it's not about good. It's not about less thinking of it in good or bad, and more of like, this is where these people are at on their path. This is where these people are at. And, it's really simple as that, but it's really science too, because two very different frequencies can't coexist in the same place. So there's this kind of natural division happening where, and there's a lot of like healthy boundaries getting put up with that, where people that used to let all these people in their life drag them down to their level, and they're trying to like appease all these, they're growing spiritually and raising their vibration there, and they're realizing, I have to remove myself from these kind of toxic people or these low vibration people as well. So there's that happening a lot. So I think there's good and bad happening with division both. But the good aspect of it, I think, is a great thing. And I think that's another testament to what the raising of the frequencies that's happening right now.
You brought up an excellent point, and I kind of want to give it a little bit of an example, is that of the relationship between the empath and the narcissist, right?
Yeah.
All of these, there's so many more empaths out there, it seems like. So many more people are more sensitive to these energies, and they're learning how not to put up with the narcissist in their life, or the narcissists in their lives. And, and if that's anyone out there who's listening, what Aaron said about creating these healthy boundaries, not only are you helping yourself on your spiritual path, but you're helping the narcissist on their spiritual path by not allowing them to inflict negative consequences upon you.
Yeah.
I think it's a great example, by the way, that you just gave about the positives of this, of these frequencies, because I think for many people out there, we're being bombarded with these constantly chaotic frequencies, right? Up, down, inside out, right side, left, da, 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 da. And it's exhausting at times. Do you find yourself in that position sometimes too?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And what do you do to reset yourself?
well, I try to get a lot of sleep for one,
Yeah.
and rest when I need rest, and get, go, away from crowds and get on my own when I need to recharge, and get out in nature is
Yeah.
huge. Getting out in nature and grounding and all that is very recharging and very healing. And
Does your music do that for you too?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Music also, so it's, I just listening to music is very recharging, and yeah,
It is, and
absolutely.
it's music and all of these creative arts comes straight from God's source energy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that when we're able to create through, if we're a musician or a dancer or whatever it is, we connect ourselves straight to God, which raises our frequency. Doing
absolutely,
those little things that help us, that's a big deal.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. um yeah, and
Mhm.
I feel like the reason I was led to, I mean, before I even played an instrument, as a kid I always loved music and loved listening to music. But then I started playing guitar and started playing instruments, and you know I just had this like creativity flowing through me naturally kind of with it. And I
Was it
think,
easy for you to learn?
yeah, well, for me, well, yeah, because I started playing guitar when I was 11 years old, and I was obsessed with it. I was like, I really, really wanted to play it. I just loved it for whatever reason. So I was really self motivated, and I taught myself, and I just kind of would play for hours on end in my parents' basement, and then I started playing in bands later and stuff like that. But
Do you
yeah, but
think
it's
you
almost
were,
like there was something in me that knew
do you think it was
what
a
you
past
just
life?
said without the head knowledge of it. It's just
Yeah.
like I don't know, but I'm sure I had past lives.
Because I'm kind of wondering if there
There's
wasn't
stuff
like
there with that.
past life where you were involved in music of some sort. I'm wondering because when we have these natural
I
innate
wouldn't doubt it.
abilities, right?
Yeah,
And anybody out there who's listening, if you have a
right.
natural
I'm
innate
sure,
ability,
but
explore it.
I haven't really listened.
Your soul deserves it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, all right.
yeah,
I'm gonna ask,
yeah, and especially if they say like follow your bliss or follow your excitement. Oh, sorry, having a little delays going on here.
there's been a
Yeah,
few
if
little
you
glitches, which means it's going to be a
think
good show.
about, playing an instrument. Yes, yes, exactly. Um, yeah, I would say just follow your excitement with that. If playing a certain instrument really excites you, like it did with me, I would say explore that, and follow that definitely, because there's a reason why, there's a reason for that. So.
It comes down to trusting your intuition and what works for you. I'm going to kind of switch subjects a little bit here. You talk about the planet's true history. What are your thoughts on the planet's true history and what does that mean?
I mean, that's a big
It's a huge
topic,
open-ended question. I know. I know.
right? Uh, I think it means what we've been told about our history and the history of the planet is not the truth. From my research, we 99% of what we're taught about our history is a complete lie. And there's a lot of lies that we're told, and there's a lot of lies by omission that we're just not told at all. A whole lot of history that goes back way farther than we're told human being history even goes. You know, I think there were many advanced civilizations, like we hear about Atlantis and Lemuria and all these things. Um, I do believe those were real civilizations that were way more advanced than we currently are right now, and that's why we see so many of these megalithic structures and so many of these things that are on the planet that make no sense with the mainstream narrative that we are the pinnacle of technological advancement of civilization. Like, that makes no sense, because
So,
you just see all these structures and all these things that point to a much more advanced civilization that existed before us, that somehow we lost a lot of that. And I think a lot of that, I wouldn't even say it's lost. I think a lot of it's just being hidden and kept from humanity to keep the control going and keep the lies going, because we are living in a very tightly controlled system of some beings that do not want us to know the truth of who we are, the truth of our history, the truth of reality, the truth of other beings other than humans that are all throughout the universe. A lot of things, because they need to keep us in this like false matrix, Truman Show, false reality that keeps us as enslaved and keeps us powering the slave system, keeps us feeding them, and keeps us disempowered. So I think that's all changing now, and people are starting to wake up on so many levels. And that's just one thing of like, wait a second, the history we're told does not add up. This does not make any sense. There's too
So
many things that point to
you're
there's
telling
much
me,
more going on.
yeah, you're telling me that the pyramids were that they didn't move the stones
Sorry,
from
that
the
was a lot.
pyramids with logs? They didn't roll the stones on logs to get the
Right,
pyramid
right.
built?
And
What?
copper tools and
What?
yeah. No, it's crazy, right? That makes so much sense, right? From
Blasphemy.
hundreds of miles away, that they somehow were like precision cut and like placed all these things. Like, yeah, what were they? Someone said for the pyramids to have been built with, you know, to align with the mainstream narrative, it was like something like every 5 minutes, one block would have to be mined, cut, and put into place every 5 minutes. So pretty sure that's impossible. So there you go, you know, and there's so many other things than that, but
Yeah, I do have some theories on that, but and it's amazing how much time in humanity is dedicated to these stories that are just not logical
yeah,
when we break down the logic trail, right?
right, right.
And that's a part of, you know, people ask what does awakening mean? And this is an aspect of awakening when you can unfold those pre-programmed belief systems that we grew up with. And when I say grow up with, that our soul has grown up with lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. When we can start unfolding these, I think that's when we get our true power back. So no, I don't think they were built by rolled down on logs.
Right, right. And the you know, the alignment with the stars, the what is it? Yeah, there's so many things, the precision of them, the alignments right on the ley lines and the energy grid of the planet, you know, and it's like all the megalithic structures, they're all on the energy grid, they're all in the ley lines. So clearly there's pyramids on every continent of the planet,
Yeah.
every single continent. So clearly it looks like there were but there's different styles and there's different, you know, styles of things. So there were multiple civilizations that all existed a long time ago that all had this greater knowledge of the cosmos, of energy, of, you know, they clearly had flying craft of some kind. There's, you know, the Nazca lines and all
Right.
these things that you can only see from way high above. So clearly, why would they do that unless they were high above where you could see these things? You know, there's so many things that point to, you know, and then look at all the ancient texts. They all describe craft. They all describe what we would call UFOs or spaceships. They all
Yeah.
describe ETs. They all describe all these things. And
Mayan hieroglyphs have spacemen
there you go.
on the hieroglyphs, right? Yeah.
Right. I was just in Egypt a few months ago on Carrie Cassidy's Egypt trip, and
How was
we're
that?
all looking. It was amazing. It was so amazing. Yeah, and yeah, just being there in person and seeing it, it's a whole different experience. It's just incredible, and yeah, you can feel the energy so strong in a lot of these places and a lot of the temples. And you know, we went in the Great Pyramid, in the Queen's Chamber, the King's Chamber. Got to go to the Sphinx at sunrise before the crowds and be right up on it and touch it and everything. And
Wow.
you're seeing water erosion all around the Sphinx, water erosion. So clearly at some point it was underwater, which also doesn't align with the mainstream. Oh, it was built 3,500 years ago. No, that doesn't make any sense. And there's restoration on it that dates to about that time that they say it was built. So okay, so they were restoring it at the same time that they were originally. That doesn't make any sense. So clearly, yeah, the Sphinx. You know, if you listen to people like Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and a lot of these other people, like they're like the Sphinx has to be at least like 38,000 years old. could even be like 52,000 years old, could even be older than that, but it has to be like at least 38,000 years old.
I
So
agree.
there you're in the times of Atlantis right there, you know, and the Great Pyramid has to be at least, in my opinion, at least around that old, I would say as well. And
Is
yeah,
there a
and you're seeing the hieroglyphs. So back to the hieroglyphs, you're seeing spaceships, you're seeing ETs, you're seeing like all these things that aren't supposed to be real and in the hieroglyphs, you know, as
right?
well. So
Is there a an ancient civilization that you have an affinity towards, or you just feel like, wow, this makes sense, or this feels like home? Is there any particular one?
not that I've been able to recognize. I
Okay.
mean, I yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know for a fact, like I've had many lifetimes in probably as different ET races and different advanced cultures and civilizations of some kind for sure.
Yeah, you bring
But
up a
I haven't
great
been able to
point.
really like pinpoint, I wouldn't be surprised if I lived in ancient Egyptian or ancient Atlantis or Lemurian times. I would not be surprised at all. I haven't felt like a need or a call to like super dive in to that personally. But I just know like, yeah, I've definitely
Yeah, I think
been
your work is
on kind of,
the exploratory angle of your work is extremely valuable, right? Looking at all the civilizations, looking at all of the entities. Throughout your history, and especially with Journey to Truth podcast, what what was a wow moment for you? Like an epiphany of sort or something? And I'm totally putting you on the spot here. I know that. Is there one moment that stands out like, whoa?
oh yeah, probably multiple. Um, man, that's a good question. Um,
And I know there's so much information that comes at you so quickly that it just
yeah,
kind of melds
yeah,
together too.
there's a lot. Yeah, yeah. Um, Man, that's a really good question. I don't know if I can think of anything in particular at the moment, but I know I've been
That's fair.
definitely there's definitely been guests and stuff that we've come across that has been maybe some of the time travel kind of stuff, maybe where it's like proof of time travel essentially,
That is
and
a trippy concept, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the fact that ETs basically if advanced ETs that are traveling through space, they also have mastered time travel because traveling through space, at least on their level, is also traveling through time.
Yes.
So, so basically, what I realize is okay. So these advanced ET races, the ones that are here now, the negative ones and the positive, like they can travel through time. So that means they could come here at any point in history that they want to, and at any point in the future. But the future, there's multiple timelines, I would say. So like I think that's really interesting because I'm like, okay, so we're so conditioned to think linearly, that time is just this fixed linear thing and there's just this one timeline and that's it. And that's not really how it works. Time is not linear like that.
It is
And
not.
it's like this, time and space are all like one thing. So like there's basically, you could say there's infinite parallel realities that are all, slightly different. And so there seems to be a big temporal war aspect to what's going on as well. And I know Michael Sala like gets into this, and other people get into this, where there seems to be some kind of temporal war where ETs are like the negative ones are trying to establish this negative.
So we're talking about the temporal wars, and we got a little glitchy there. So go ahead, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
The matrix must not be working right.
Right. They didn't like what I was talking about. They had to shut it down.
Yeah.
Maybe. So yeah, so there seems to be like a temporal war going on. so to speak, between, and a spiritual war as well. I think they're both going on. And there seems to be, that you could say the negatives or the controlling ETs are kind of like, they're able to go throughout our timeline at different points and kind of manipulate it, right? So they change something in the past, it changes something now. And I think this temporal war is the reason we're seeing the Mandela effect. I think it's a big reason for it, at least. There's many things that seem to have changed from what I am certain I remember it being, that now it's, oh no, it's always been this other way. It's like, what? It makes no sense, but it makes perfect sense when you understand the nature of time, and that time is not one solid thing, and it can be manipulated. And so I think there's a lot of, the negatives are trying to manipulate us onto a negative timeline, and the positives are trying to mitigate that manipulation and trying to keep us going on a positive timeline, in my opinion, to put it in a nutshell. And when I found out about that, that was pretty mind blowing. And that was pretty like, whoa, that makes so much sense. That's that's crazy.
It does. And it's conceptually really hard to understand at times too.
Right.
I mean, so we really have to really think through this, really understand conceptually what's going on and what that's about. And it's not always easy to understand these things. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's not right. That's, I think a big aspect of it.
Right.
Another question, and this one I'm coming up with quite a bit in my personal life, but also as I'm looking globally at things. We're seeing so many people out there who are speaking certain truths, etc. And then all of a sudden, it's like they fall from the grace of the public, or they come up with some information that seems to have been corrupted somehow. Mm-hmm. And what do you think that's about? And I don't want to name names or anything like that. That's not where I'm going at with it. But I think discernment is key. And it's like, how do we not fall into that trap ourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm right there with you. I've been seeing it a ton as well, and it's especially over the last like couple of years or few years or so. It's like, wow, there's so many people, so many big names, in the community that turn out to be not who everyone thinks they are, or there's a lot, not
you think
great.
They started that way, and they just something happened where they weren't true to themselves and became a little bit more corrupted, or what do you?
I think some of them, that is the case. I think there's multiple things going on here. So here's what I think. Yeah, I think some of them, that is absolutely the case, where they started out with the purest of intentions, and they started out, with integrity, and they started out great. And then, what can happen, as we know, human ego, starts getting popularity and fame, and starts getting a lot of attention. And I think that's a big part of, why a lot of them start letting that get to their head. Then they start getting their ego inflated and putting themselves on this pedestal. And then, things happen from there. And then I think also a part of it is, then there's ones that from the get-go were not who we thought they were, and are what we hear about controlled opposition and stuff like that, where they're probably whether they were, you could say there's different aspects of this. So there's people that are on the dark side, let's just to simplify it, that from the get-go were working purely on the dark side, that were just purely pretending to be, on the light side or whatever, and infiltrate into the disclosure community or the spiritual community. And for multiple reasons, to be a gatekeeper, to spread disinformation, to spread narratives of disempowerment, where people are giving their power away to saviors outside of them, whether that's ETs or whether that's themselves. There are certain people out there that are basically making themselves into a savior. I'm not going to name names, but I see them right now. I'm like, wow, this person is literally basically making themselves into a savior of humanity and telling everyone to put all their faith and hope in them, essentially. And then there's ones that are basically spreading these narratives of, oh, these ETs are here to save us all, and they've already cleaned up all the dark, and and don't get me wrong, there are benevolent ETs here, and there's truth in that, but it's you got to look at the intent behind what they're saying, and look at what the narratives they're pushing as. Like, is it disempowering or is it empowering? Is it more fear-based or is it more, love-based? Like, what's the energy behind it? And are they putting themselves on a pedestal? Are they trying to say, you have to believe this is the only truth, my truth is the truth, and anyway, everyone else is not, only follow me for the real information, things like that. Big red flags. Yeah, I think some of them were, the whole time were kind of like infiltrators working for the dark, whether they were manipulated into that, whether, how the cabal works. Like, they could have been like, hey, if you don't work for us and do this, we'll blah, 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 kill you.
Right. Punish you. Yeah.
Will expose this stuff about, go down the list. They have all their tactics. Maybe they were bought off, maybe they're paid, maybe all the above. Mm-hmm. But then there's the ones that were just kind of like, they let their ego get, corrupt them. And, which is also a shame, and then there's probably a lot of unhealed trauma and unhealed wounds with people like that as well, that where even though they have a good intention, but they have a lot of unhealed stuff that causes them to act in ways that are not great and not in integrity. And then, but there are some big names. Let's just say that Tyler and I, through us doing the podcast, we are naturally more involved in the community, kind of behind the scenes with a lot of these people. And we were shocked to find like how not in integrity some people are that are still around, that are still like have a huge platform. People are, still praising them left and right. And I'm not telling you who to follow, who not to follow, or I'm just saying this is up to each individual person to use your own discernment. Really do not just believe anything. Here's a way to avoid the trap. Just don't give your power away. Don't ever give your power away, period. No matter whether Tyler and I are saying something, any big name in the community, or anyone.
Absolutely.
Take what resonates for you. Take what, you're like, yes, that is a truth. I believe that. Oh, that's interesting. They're saying this. Let me consider that. Let me look into that more, do my own research on that, and come to my own conclusion. But I'm not going to just outright believe something because someone I follow or like a lot says it, or especially if there's like a big narrative attached to it where it's like, because I see a lot of people that there's like these groups forming in the community that I see where it's like, okay, this person has all these followers and it's like they're all going around talking about all the stuff this person's saying as if that's the gospel truth. And then you have this person, they have all their followers and they're going around, oh, this person says this and this and this, and that's the gospel truth, everything they say. And then they fight each other. Oh, blah, blah, blah. They get the groups fighting each other, and then those people fight each other and slander each other. And it's like, to me, I'm sorry, this feels like cults to me. This feels like cult groups.
It's exhausting.
It's a cult leader, and then they fight each other. And all I see is people giving their power away to these particular narratives and these cult leaders, essentially. And then they all fight each other. And I'm like, so not only are people disempowering themselves, they're also fighting each other and getting there. You just see what the fruits that are coming of this. And it's just like, all right. So that's part of like the division, the negative part of division that we were talking about earlier, that I see happening. And it's like, well, the simple solution to all that is don't follow anyone.
Yeah.
Don't be a follower of anyone. Take in everything.
You, right?
You can like a person. You can really respect and love a person and watch a lot of their YouTube videos and go to their conferences and go to whatever, buy their books. That's great. I do that with a lot of people. But if one of those people says something that I'm like, that doesn't resonate with me, or I don't agree with that, that's fine. I just leave it. Yeah. That's cool. I don't get all upset about it and then throw out, oh, I'm not following you anymore. I'm unsubscribed. You see people do this all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just throwing out everything now. And because you said this one thing I don't agree with and I don't like. And or you're a controlled opposition because you said this one thing I don't agree with. And it's like, guys, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. And
it's not, yeah.
No,
that's such a childish
100% perfect either, right?
Right. No one is 100% perfect. No one has all the answers.
Exactly. So. You did say something that I think is really poignant, and that is, and I'm going to bring it into anybody out there who's listening, when you're at a crossroads of whatever it is, you had said, ask yourself, what's the energy behind it?
Yep.
That's huge. Yep. If it's a statement, if it's a concept, if it's a situation, if it's an emotion, whatever it is, ask yourself, what's the energy behind it? What's the benefit? What's the con to it? And explore that. And Aaron, you're the perfect example of what it's like to take deep dives into information. Mm-hmm. And it never ends, right? We are ongoing process. Infinitely learning, and any of the big names out there, whatever, that purports that they know everything, I'm going to tell you right now, futures are fluid, everything changes. So what I know now in this point in time can change down the road. Right. We all grow and evolve and ebb and flow, and it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes. And we have to know and respect that about ourselves and ask ourselves what rings true for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I will say this too, just because we have someone on the show, you know, it's because we've gotten this a lot recently, where we had a certain individual on our show a few times, and he was giving a lot of intel, and you know, that's why we were having him on, and turned out to be not a person we would like to associate with or to have on our show. And what did we do? We immediately, once we found out that was, you know, these certain things were true, we deleted the videos. We made an apology video. We said, hey, that doesn't mean everything he said wasn't true, but you know, here's what we found out, and we don't want to associate with somebody that is, you know, like this. So, you know, we'll not associate, obviously. We don't want to promote them on our show, you know.
Right. And we're
not telling you who to follow, but that's just us. And we did that, but then we have all these people trying to say, oh, we're promoting pedophilia and pedophiles because we had this guy on our show, and they like created this narrative about us because, and we even like owned up, we even like, it's like we could have done it quietly and not said anything, but we were like, no, we felt like we needed to do the right thing.
It's journey to truth, right?
Let everyone know. Right. And we're like, hey, we're not perfect, guys. You know, we should have probably done a little bit more due diligence in our background checks, you know, and stuff. And then we would have.
How can you possibly know everything about everyone on that personal, intimate level, right?
Right.
And the truth will always come out. Again, it's a karmic thing. We expect that karma creates or seeks balance, and the truth will eventually come out. We just don't know when it will come out. And, you know, I kind of remember that instance that you're discussing, and you guys handled it very well. And anybody who may not have who the accusations, clearly they are injured in some way or are dealing with their own traumas in some way, because you can't possibly know the innards of every single person you have on your show week after week after week. Right.
It's like it was like they're trying to create this narrative that we knew that the whole time, and we still had them on because we, you know,
you want the ratings or whatever,
supporting that or whatever. Sure. We're like, no, that is not true at all. You know, you can believe what you want to believe, you know, but that's not true at all. And then some of those same people were also spreading blatant lies about our conference. One person who has his own channel he's been, every once in a while, he'll like start slandering us and bring up that again on his channel over and over. He literally tried to call the venue to tell them our conference was promoting pedophiles. We were going to have pedophiles there. He was telling them lies to try to get the conference shut down. He called the venue and was saying these things. And luckily, like, they called Tyler, this lady. She's like, hey, I just want to let you know this guy is calling us and saying all these things. What's that about? But Tyler told her what that was about. She's like, she was like, okay, I thought he sounded pretty like not,
Not there.
not all there, or like, not a person I would take seriously kind of thing, but I wanted to still let you know this was happening. And we're like, oh my gosh.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. So I
No
know
idea.
that, and that doesn't just happen with us. I know that happens with all kinds of people in the community where like people, like you said, they're unhealed, they have their own crap, and they're projecting that, and they it's almost like they have this jealousy, or they're like, you're a threat to them, so they have to attack you, instead of like them, instead of like, just, hey, promote the things you love, teach truths, stay, it's like they make almost their whole, or most of their platform, about attacking other people and bringing other people down and spreading all this. And then most of what they're saying is not even true anyway. And it's like, I've been seeing a lot of that over the last
I've
few
been
years as
noticing
well.
it a lot too. It's unfortunate. I think people are tired of the noise.
Yeah.
I do know that when people look at you and Tyler, they're seeing real people with you guys. Absolutely. It's not going to slow you guys down at all. I know that for a fact.
No.
But it's
No.
unfortunate. And it's the cleanup behind that sometimes is frustrating, because there's other things you could be doing with your time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But well,
So
that's why, normally we don't, like, if we get a comment like that, or we've gotten emails, we've gotten comments, we've gotten Facebook messages that we just ignore them usually, or delete and block or whatever.
yeah.
But every once in a while we're forced to respond because it just gets that bad. But yeah, absolutely. It's like,
Sometimes I get a little sassy and sarcastic.
yeah. Oh yeah. Every once in a while too, I'll be like, all right, I have to respond to this.
Like, oh, this is going to be too much fun to respond to this one.
Right. Oh yeah. But anyways, but the majority of the comments and the feedback we get is amazing, and is beautiful, and
You guys do really good work.
we're so grateful for everyone that supports us, and that, thank you. We couldn't do it without the support of you and everyone else.
Everybody out there. Absolutely. And, you guys have podcasts, webinars. Tell me a little bit about the webinars that you guys do.
Yeah. So we just recently started doing webinars on our Patreon. We try to do them once a month, but sometimes we can't do it because we get busy with other things. But yeah, we just try to pick a different topic to do a webinar on. Try to do about once a month, and we've done. So the first one was the free one that we did, that was on UFOs, and kind of we try to go through the whole history of.
Can people still
UFOs.
get access to the free one if they want to check it out?
Yeah, well, the free one's on our YouTube channel publicly.
Okay,
so you
perfect.
can just go back to about sometime in March is when we released that one, and that's on our.
I'll put the link on this. I'll take a note here.
Okay, I think we called it UFOs for Dummies.
I love it.
Because we kind of go back to the basics, and like, things we kind of just like, we're like, okay, we kind of just assume everyone knows, but not everyone knows about these things, and it helps to connect dots, and
Everybody has a first day, right?
right. So we went and we made it into the whole timeline of like, we tried to go back to like the 1800s all the way through modern day times of like, UFOs, contactees, whistleblowers and stuff like that. And there was a lot we could have included a lot more, but it was already so huge. We had to, we had to stop at some point, and you can fill in your own blanks beyond that. But yeah, that was the first one we did, and then we did one on and then Tyler did one on his own because I was in Egypt on the voice of God, or voice to skull technology, and that's on our Patreon. And then we just did one on clones, deep fake, and holograms, and just all the fake kind of stuff we see going on. And
we'll put some links out to the Patreon as well for that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Before we end, do you want to play some music? Are you up for that?
Sure. You mean like play like on my guitar?
Yeah, is that possible? How many people have heard you play?
A few.
A few?
Yeah.
If you're not up for it, we'll just cut this out. No big
How
deal.
about, well, I can send you, I have some solo music
Okay,
recorded that I could send you if you want to like splice it on to the end here.
we'll do
You could do
that.
that.
All right,
Okay. I
let's
think
do
that would be
that.
better. I don't know if the mic, it'd just be kind of hard to make
All
that
right,
work.
very good. I see. I've been really good at putting you on the spot today.
You have been, you have been good at that.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking out the time for this today, Aaron. It has been so
Thank
much
you so
fun.
much.
Journey to Truth podcast. They've got conferences, webinars, Patreon, all kinds of stuff. Um, T-shirts on Spring Tree. I think if you go to YouTube, is that right? And
Yeah.
other, yeah, and other
Yeah.
elements there. So definitely check them out. Support these guys. They do a great job exposing the truth, finding resources for everybody. It may not ring true for you. It may ring true for you. That's yours to decide. And that's the basis of their platform. So thank you for
Yes.
listening. And thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.